All right, howdy out there. This is Beck Barnes and Jim Steadman of Cotton Grower Magazine, and we are coming at you with the universally acclaimed Cotton Companion podcast here at the tail end of August. Whether you are joining us from Buckeye, Arizona, or Durham, Georgia, we are dearly appreciative that you're here. I'm joined today. That was terrible. I knew it was terrible when I was writing it. I'm joined today, as always, by my partner, Mr. Jim Steadman. Howdy, Jim.
Hello, Beck. I'm sure people in South Georgia really appreciate the fact that you nailed the pronunciation for Doran.
I mispronounced that for a few years before they finally got it.
We all did.
Yeah, they were
we all do.
They politely allowed me to do it until I did it too often. You've been down here long enough. You got to figure out how to say this.
Yeah, you got to know how to say this. So shout out to Doran.
Yeah. So we're back in studio today, as you may have surmised, as many of y'all are entering the pre-harvest period where you just want it to quit raining. You're trying to avoid a hurricane or two, and you may be trying to pack in some late season heat units. We know that if you are far enough south down there in South Texas, you are in the throes of harvest, and we certainly are thinking of y'all. We wish y'all well and a trouble-free end to your season. We have had an active couple of weeks. We've been traveling a good bit since we last checked in with y'all on the podcast. Jim was over in the Carolinas covering a Corteva event. I think they had an announcement over a week ago that you'll hear about later in the show. And at the end of last week, I had a shorter trip. I just went downtown Memphis, to the Peabody Hotel and checked in with the NCC with their mid-year meeting. Yeah, down there at the Peabody, I heard their NCC's take on the ongoing trade war and supply and demand and how big this U.S. crop's going to be. And anyhow, before I get going too far into that, should just say, in summary, we got a lot going on in this episode, so you'll want to tune in for the length of it. So first things first, we want to bring you a short message from our sponsors, Phytogen.
Phytogen is pleased to sponsor the Cotton Companion, bringing you the latest news to help you thrive all season long.
All right, so that is a timely Phytogen ad, as always, because at this moment, we want to bring y'all a brief custom content segment featuring our very own Robin Sichtberg. She recently had a chance to sit down and talk with Dr. Ken Leger, who is Phytogen's cotton development specialist for West Texas and Oklahoma. And we want to bring y'all that custom interview right now.
Hello, I'm Robin Sichtberg, Custom Content Editor for Meister Media Worldwide, publisher of Cotton Grower Magazine. And I'm here on the program today with Dr. Ken Leger, who is Phytogen Cotton Development Specialist in West Texas and Oklahoma. Welcome back to the program.
Thanks, glad to be here.
Well, last time you were on, we talked about root knot nematode, and this time we are going to talk about another problem that cotton growers can have to experience now and then is verticillium wilt or vert wilt. And how do you know if you have vert wilt in your field?
Well, verticillium wilt is a soil-borne pathogen, a fungal organism that plugs the vascular system. So a grower can tell if he has vert wilt if you have spots or individual plants in the field that are stunted, wilted. Perhaps they have marginal chlorosis or necrosis, that is yellowing in dead areas of the leaves, and ultimately vascular discoloration throughout the stem, particularly toward the base of the stem. You can identify vert wilt by soil sampling, but it's very tricky, and there are a lot of false positives and false negatives. So it's much easier and more reliable to look at the plant and determine what level of vert wilt you have in that field.
So if you determine that you do have it, what do you do to protect your crop against vert wilt?
Well, certainly there are a couple of bad news items on this. First, there's really no economically viable chemical treatment available for vert wilt, and really all the decisions about managing for vert wilt are really made prior to planting. But there are some in-season things you can do, like proper irrigation levels. That is, don't under-irrigate or over-irrigate. In terms of crop rotation, rotating with grass crops such as corn or sorghum can benefit slightly. But overall, the best foundation is to plant a tolerant variety. And certainly among our Phytogen portfolio, we have some phytogen breeding traits. One of those is verticillium wilt tolerance, and we can match up the level of tolerance for specific varieties to the level of vert in a particular field. So you can have a cotton development specialist come out and visit that field, and we can match up. If you're seeing a field that's planted to a susceptible variety that's premature defoliating and showing symptoms from field border to field border, you likely have a very, very high level of vert wilt in that field, and you'll want to choose a variety from our portfolio that's rated as excellent. On the other hand, if you have just a few plants here or there, a few areas in the field that are showing those symptoms, you may be able to choose one that's rated good or very good for vert wilt tolerance, and still protect yourself from that pest. Certainly, a lot more information can be found on phytogen.com or by contacting your local territory manager for phytogen or your phytogen cotton development specialist.
Thank you, Ken. This is a topic that obviously requires some complicated answers, and I thank you for trying to provide some brief information in the time we've allowed you. So thanks again for being on the program.
Thank you.
So, all right, a big thank you to Robin, a big thank you to Ken Leger of Phytogen for that, and let's get the ball rolling here. This is our 54th episode, and man, it's going to be a good one. Jim is going to lead us, as always, in our news segment. He's going to be talking about, among other things, crop progress at this point, the 2019, another big news item that happened last week, kind of quietly released, the 2019 USDA Cotton Varieties Planted Report, which is a neat thing to kind of dissect when that thing comes out to let us know, what you guys are doing out there, what traits, what varieties, what you value in a cotton seed. Also, on a similar note, there is a new nematode trait in the pipeline at one of the big ag companies, and so we're going to tell you a little bit about that. And we also have an item about some criminals out on the high plains who are causing some major headaches to our farmers out there. That'll gets my blood boiling, might get yours blood boiling too. So after that, we're going to bring you an interview that Jim recently conducted with our old friend, Dr. O.A. Cleveland. We hadn't heard from Dr. Cleveland in a while, and, I'll tell you briefly, we went to him to try to get him to find some positivity in what has been a brutal past couple of weeks for cotton prices. I know I'm not telling y'all anything you don't know. So we will see if Dr. Cleveland could succeed with that task that we put to him. So anyhow, as you could tell, action-packed episode today, a great episode. And without further ado, I will turn it over to Jim to lead us in this news discussion.
Thank you, Beck. As usual, we're going to start with a quick look at our crop progress of the latest report available to us. At least that would be the August 19th report. The report shows that the U.S. crop continues to mature quickly, but overall condition ratings really are still changing almost on a week-to-week basis. Boll set as of August 19th was visible in 85% of the U.S. crop. That's an 8% jump from the past week. And in all 13 of the 15 cotton states evaluated are on or above their individual 5-year averages. Open bolls, which are the things we really want to see this time of year, were reported in 24% of the crop. That's a 4% climb in the past week. And here's the interesting part. It's a whopping 11% ahead of the 5-year average for this state. So for a crop that we felt was kind of lagging and running behind, it's made remarkable progress from that perspective. Crop condition, like I said, continues to fluctuate almost from week to week. We had some hot, dry weather throughout most of the cotton belt in the past week, and it kind of pushed those good, excellent ratings down, pushed them down 7%, so we're sitting at 49% for that rating. And unfortunately, it also pushed the poor, very poor ratings down 10% or down from 10% to 15%, which leaves 36% of the crop rated fair, which was just a very slight percentage increase over the past week. So I know there's been some rain since that report came out in certain areas. We'll be waiting to see what the latest crop report looks like when it's released here earlier this week.
Yeah. I mentioned being down there at the NCC annual meeting, and they gave a crop condition update as that relates to what supply is going to be like at the end of the season. And anyhow, I didn't realize, but they were talking about how really the last month conditions had deteriorated in a couple key parts of the belt, especially West Texas, where it had been just a touch too dry here in the run-in to harvest. And so that may factor into some of that slide back in condition to some of the crop here. So again, we hope things turn out just right for y'all.
Absolutely.
We know it's
and even as we sit here right now, I think there is some rain projected for the High Plains area this week, which will be a big, huge relief if it comes for some of those dry land acres out there that really, really need a good drink of water.
Yeah, while our guys here closer to us are trying to avoid.
Yeah,
they wanted to cut off.
We've had enough.
Yeah,
we've had enough. We need some more heat units.
Yeah.
Okay. Next, Beck mentioned that we've got some vandalism out in the cotton market, and it is it's out of coastal Texas, not the High Plains.
Okay. Forgive me. I thought it was
coastal Texas, where we're already harvesting.
Yeah. Duh. Okay.
We have some local officials in San Patricio County, Texas, which is right there north of Corpus Christi, are looking for some area vandals who basically took basically sliced open some recently harvested round cotton modules in the field, and this is a little bit over a week ago, causing cotton to spill out. Obviously, leaves a lot of damage and uncertainty. Preliminary estimates are pegging the damage at around $50,000 total. These were I think there were 3 growers that were impacted by this, and every one of those growers who are targeted will be filing criminal charges if a suspect or suspects are identified. Now, the San Patricio County Sheriff, Oscar Rivera, is obviously investigating. He's looking for leads and other information regarding this vandalism. He said so far there have been 3 reports and 15 modules damaged, but he's afraid there may be more cases out there. It's the first time in his career, he said, that he has seen this type of malicious crime in the county targeting farmers. And in the past week, $15,000 has been collected or designated as a reward for any information on this. The sheriff said the persons responsible will obviously face criminal mischief charges, but it will also be a felony charge because of the dollar value of the product. So if you haven't seen photos of the damage, log on to cottongrower.com and look for our article about the module slicing vandals. The pictures are really kind of heartbreaking.
Yeah, some real Einsteins, no doubt. I mean, just some idiots with too much time on their hand. What can you say? We try to give tips for you guys out there, but how do you guard against this? Just, I guess, stay vigilant. Know who's coming up and down those country roads. Y'all know the roads you travel. So anyhow, stay vigilant out there.
Absolutely. Next, we're going to talk about the new nematode issue or product that is about to come to market. For those of you who are wrestling with nematode issues from season to season, comes an official announcement from Phytogen and Corteva Agriscience of a new breeding trait to help control reniform nematodes. Now, Phytogen already has a dual gene trait to handle root knot nematodes, and this new trait is going to be added to upcoming Phytogen varieties in combination with the root knot trait. Field tests of the new trait have been promising. I was at a press event in South Carolina to take a look at some of the cotton in the field. It looked great. The company is planning a limited rollout of at least 2 of these varieties to their grower partners that are part of the Phytogen Horizon Network for some on-farm evaluation in 2020. They are anticipating a full launch of 2 to 4 varieties containing both of these nematode traits in 2021. So it's an interesting. It's very, very promising. It looks great because as we know, nematodes, you just can't. Yeah, it's difficult to keep them maintained and keep them controlled without too much damage.
Yeah, and we know so many of y'all deal with them all across the cotton belt. I will say, I was at another ag company's field day, a Bayer field day, a few weeks back, and I have not seen the official announcement from them, but I know that they have a very similar trait coming through their pipeline too that they will be announcing in a more official fashion here at some point in the future.
Sure, we don't know what that timeline's going to be.
Yeah. So, but anyhow,
help is coming, guys.
Yeah.
And we're going to end this segment with a look at the top variety cotton varieties planted report from USDA.
There we go.
USDA, I guess, names their reports in just some very tongue-tying ways. But this has always become what around our offices is known as the bragging rights report.
Yeah.
Because again, Delta Pine, no surprise, Delta Pine brand of upland cottonseed was again the most popular brand planted in the U.S. this year, according to that USDA report, followed by Americot Next Gen brands, and in third, Phytogen, fourth, BASF FiberMax, fifth, the Altex Dynagrow varieties, sixth, BASF Stoneville, and seventh, the Cropland varieties. Now, looking at the report, Delta Pine's DP 1646 B2XF was far and away the top upland variety in the U.S. for the third straight year, accounting for 22.25% of total cotton acres.
I mentioned being at that Bear Field Day. I was talking to Dave Albers. He was telling me that variety in particular actually gets a wider market share than even triple nickel used to get.
Yes.
It's just an immensely popular variety and has been now for 3 years. So it's kind of amazing the popularity of that specific variety.
But just to kind of put it in perspective, okay, they're on 22.25% of the acres this year. The Delta Pine DP 1518 B2XF ranks second with 3.7% of the acres, followed by Next Gen 4545 B2XF with 3.6% of the acres. So there's a huge gap between 1646 and even
in the second place.
Wow.
Yeah, I didn't realize that. And that's nationally, right?
That's nationally.
Not by region. Yeah.
That is nationally.
Yeah.
According to the report, Delta Pine brand varieties accounted for 41% of U.S. acreage this year. Americot Next Gen has 22.8%. Phytogen was 17.8%. BASF FiberMax was 6.6%. Altex Dynagrow with 5.5%. BASF Stoneville with 3.8%. And Cropland with 2.24%. So everybody's got a little piece of the pie this year, and in some cases that's certainly a very good thing for some companies that the percentage points may look lower, but they're actually increases.
Yeah, well, in a year like this where everybody has a slice of the pie, that pie's a little bigger this year than
Absolutely.
it has been maybe in some recent memory, with so much acreage going on out there. So well done to all of the seed companies. We see clearly what we're seeing is there's an immense appetite for the Auxin technologies out there, the dicamba-tolerant varieties having a big year. And, I think we're starting to see some of these new insect traits making a little dent in these variety decisions.
Absolutely. Now, the report also lists like the 20 most popular upland varieties.
Yeah.
And in that top 20, Delta Pine and Americot Next Gen both claim 7 spots out of that top 20. Phytogen had 4, and Altex Dynagrow, FiberMax, and Stoneville each placed 1 variety in the top 20. And if you want to shift over to the Pima side, Phytogen remains the most popular choice for Pima acres. They have 3 varieties that accounted for 86.7% of all Pima acreage this year. If you're looking for more details, including regional breakouts on where the companies fit and the percentages and where the varieties fit, you can find all those details on cottongrower.com.
Yeah, it's always, and like I say, if you are a cotton nerd like me, I can get real deep drilling down into those stats on a report like that. So, anyhow, that's all we got for today.
That's all we got for right now.
You don't have a surprise item for me?
No surprise items today. We have too much legitimate news to talk about.
That's right. Okay. Well, thank you for leading us in the news segment there. I want to say by way of setting up the interview with Dr. Cleveland. who Jim spoke with. What was that? Friday of last week or Thursday?
Friday. It was like 3 days ago.
Yeah, and anyhow, the background coloring Jim's conversation with OA was that I had just come back, and Jim and I are aware of cotton prices, day to day, and we had seen that it was kind of a brutal week for prices, and I had just come back from that NCC Mid-Year Meeting downtown, where Dr. Jody Campiche, who was the NCC's VP of Economics, she told that room that even though harvest outlooks had worsened in the United States, again, I mentioned a little earlier, due to this dry weather that is enveloping much of the country, we are still on track to produce what would be, at minimum, the third largest crop on record in the United States. And that's going to kind of further add to these already robust stocks that are inflating supply and looking for a home on the global market. It's just kind of adding pressure on prices. And so after she finished speaking, the NCC's Vice President of Washington Affairs, Mr. Reese Langley, he gave a long and dynamic summary of the global trade scenario and supply and demand. But the one thing, it would take me a while to summarize everything that he said, but if there was one line that kind of resonated with me as he was speaking, it was that we should not be expecting a China trade deal anytime soon, which of course does not bode well for our prices. I don't, that's not telling y'all anything you don't know. And he did say there's hope in finding some new markets, and we got to open up trade markets elsewhere, find a new dance partner out there, if you will, and that's a possible area of relief. But all in all, I would say it was not a meeting that gave me the warm and fuzzies as I left from downtown last week. So come back, and Jim and I are talking about who we should interview for this podcast this week, and he said, well, OA generally can find something to be positive about. And so I believe I had asked Jim to ask OA to turn my frown upside down, and I don't know if he succeeded. Jim, what were y'all able to do that?
Well, first of all, I went back and checked, and it had been 4 months since we had talked to OA.
Yeah, it had been a
And
while.
4 months ago, things were entirely different. And there was still a little bit of a rosy glow to the market, and you didn't have to dig very deep to find some optimism. So I asked him in this as we came in. I said, "You have always been our hope for optimism and our ray of sunshine in the market."
Yeah.
I said, "Please put some sunshine out here for us."
Yeah.
He tried.
Yeah, he tried. He had some lipstick to put on the pig.
But he's but let's face it. I mean, he's a realist. He understands the issues impacting the market, and he went into them in great detail. So for a market minute segment that actually went on for almost for a little over 14 minutes. It's a great interview.
Okay, yeah, good. Yeah, it's chock filled with some good stuff. So without further ado, here's that interview with Dr. O.A. Cleveland, Professor Emeritus of Economics at Mississippi State University.
Today we're joined by our longtime friend and cotton market expert, Dr. O.A. Cleveland. He's Professor Emeritus of Agricultural Economics at Mississippi State University. O.A., I checked to see how long it's been since we last visited about the cotton market for this podcast, and was really kind of surprised to see it's been 4 months. Now, that's quite possibly the craziest 4 months in cotton that I can ever recall. And I know you've always been our optimistic person and our sort of ray of sunshine in the market. So where is the market today, and kind of what do growers need to know to get through the rest of this season?
Well, that's a great question, and I wish I had just a whole lot of sunshine to drop on this thing. It's just difficult to find any, in all honesty. A couple of things. We've had 2 outside range days within the past week, and that we like to think that says there's some optimism out there, but try as hard as I may, it's awful difficult to find those to represent optimism or any permanent or even any short-term optimism. I think we're really stuck in the trading range between 57 cents and 61 cents. It's actually probably a little narrower than that, but that's a 4-cent range. I think there is tremendous overhead resistance just above 60 cents. So that's the real negative thing. That it's just not much of a light there or much sunshine. It says we can go above 60 cents to any appreciable amount of just a few points. But the tariffs, the demand issues around the globe, the improving crops around the globe, really just telling us there's a lot more pressure on this market than most people feel, and probably we're going to move somewhat lower just to get the most negative outlook out of the way in a hurry, so we maybe find something that sounds a tiny bit better. The most negative thing that could happen in the market now would be for China to invade Hong Kong and try to use troops to settle any peace there. I think that would probably take a minimum of a nickel out of the market, and would not be even surprised to see it take a full 10-cent piece out of that market. So that could just be a killer. Hong Kong's a real major textile city. Besides being one of the major financial centers of the world, it's a major textile center. It's been hugely disrupted already, and it's going to be difficult to get back on its feet. But if any troops moved in there, it would just shut her down completely. So that's the biggest negative with that 10-cent drop. But wow, who wants to hear that? No one.
I'm tempted to hang up on you at this point.
Yeah, that's for most people already have. But the mills played around an awful lot between 58 cents and 61 cents, kept the market hanging around that area with fixations, but they still have a great deal of fixations to do. This there is more cotton around the world, not only here in the United States, but Brazil, Australia, Africa. There's more unpriced cotton at this time of the year going into harvest than ever before. So that just simply says there is a world of cotton, not to be a pun, there is a world of cotton that's yet to be priced. So that's just how much selling is out there. So it's not going to be easy to get any positive traction to the upside. We're going to have to think in terms of marketing out of the loan, using the POP, the LDP marketing loan game. We're going to have to use that as our strategy to do the marketing. We're sitting right on top of that kicking in. It may kick in basically on today's situation. We'll see. But I just don't see any bright spots. Technically, everything still points to the downside. And when we look at it, the U.S. crop, it seems to be good. I still have a mixed bag on it. So we've got to look at the U.S. crop, the Indian crop, the Brazilian crop to tell us on one side, on the supply side, where the market's going to go. We know China has a big crop. Their warehouses are already full. So we've got to look at these three big crops. The U.S. crop, if it drops back down to, say, 21 million off of USDA's 22.5, it's still a big crop. We're still going to build inventory. We're still going to build carryover. So from the production side, we're just a little bit jacked up to the negative side with all the big crop coming in, even if the U.S. is a million and a half below where we are today. Looking, we've got a lot of hope for a bullish market. We'll depend on India, but India has had great rains now for 2 weeks. They're back on track. They harvest 10 months out of the year. And they plant 10 months out of the year. So it's a situation that the Indian crop has a lot of wiggle room with respect to its agronomic conditions and its growing conditions. So they're doing actually fine in the scheme of things. On the demand side, again, I mentioned that the Chinese warehouses are full of cotton already, and they've not harvested their crop yet. So China has a plenty of inventory on hand. They don't even need U.S. cotton if the tariff was thrown off. Yeah, there's 1,000 bales, 10,000 bales, 15,000 bales every now and then that they can fit in because of grades and staples and things. But they don't really need any U.S. cotton at all.
Let me ask you a question. What about contracts that are already in place? Any chance that we're going to see some cancellations?
Yes, we're pushing now 8 million bales of cotton on the books that have been sold. We've only delivered of that 8 million about 700,000. So we still round numbers, 7 to 8 million bales of cotton. I would anticipate that a minimum of 2 million of that will be canceled. This is cotton that's been sold at much higher prices, and it just makes absolutely no sense for any textile mill to honor their contract. It's not necessarily considered dishonorable to back out of those contracts. It's become part of the business now. So with this much cotton booked, again, about 8 million, of which a little over 7 million remains to be shipped, we're going to see probably about 2 million bales that are going to get canceled. And why not? It's booked at 78 cents, 80 cents, and 85 cents, and all the way up to 90 cents. So it'll get canceled. It's just a matter of timing. Last week's export sales report was very strong, just roughly 350 million bales. Folks got excited. I got excited, but we failed to remember that how much is going to get canceled. This week, round numbers, 150,000. It's going to be more like what's going to turn out to be what we'll see on a permanent basis. But, we see cotton coming down. Wow, cotton below 60 cents. We're going to take this market share back. Polyester, well, polyester's at a record low. Polyester's in the 40s. Polyester's in the low 40s. So cotton is still expensive compared to polyester. The marketplace has just been a big, huge burst to cotton. I'll say it this way, it's a bust.
Yeah.
We're seeing declining consumption in China. It's getting worse. We're seeing textile mills in China operating at 50% to 75% capacity. Vietnam's going very strong. Bangladesh, USDA pulled out their production last month, not this month, but last month. But reports I still got out of Bangladesh are they're going very strong in buying cotton. So everywhere but China is doing good, but world consumption vis-a-vis China, the Chinese middle class, they are really suffering. The Chinese economy is actually rather suffering a great deal. So consequently, the Chinese are not buying apparel. That's where the major drawdown is in China. So we're starting to see apparel inventory increase. We're seeing yarn stocks increase, and mills are beginning to make major slowdowns.
Well, I know several weeks ago when USDA released their World Supply Demand Report for August, I think, a lot of people looked at that and just went, where are these numbers coming from? What in the world are you doing? We're not necessarily believing these numbers, and it wasn't just cotton, it was across all crops, it seemed like. Any chance that we've got the September report is going to kind of soothe some of those waters a little bit for us?
Well, I would hope so. I'm trying to talk to some of my agronomist friends. I woke up in the middle of the night just thinking out loud about cotton, really because I couldn't sleep. But says, where's George Mullendore when I need him? I need him to be here. I need to call Cater Hayes and see what he can tell me. Cotton Incorporated. What I am noticing is, I'm talking to folks in other crops, we're seeing based on the trees, we're seeing an extremely early fall. And I'm trying to figure out what that means for cotton. We've got trees already, the leaves already yellow and brown and whatnot. And it's not drought related. We know that. We're checking the water table and the water situation in these places. So we're trying to see how cotton reacts in that kind of situation. And to date, I can't tell you. Maybe some others can. But certainly we have some droughty spots out in Texas, but we also have some dryland cotton in Texas that's had just terrific moisture. Right. We know it has great moisture underneath it. The Mid-South crop on the surface from the windshield looks really good, as does the Southeast crop. So, but yes, I noticed that there's a lot of concern about the soybean yields USDA put out, and the corn yields apparently USDA, based on what we're seeing now, they must have done a good job. But we'll find out next month. It's just too early, is all we can say. We do know that the seed companies have given us tremendous yielding varieties the last 3 years, so there's no reason to think that these yields can't match what they're saying. It's one service would like to see the yields not so high, but certainly taking up any individual farmer, not my yield, someone else's yield.
Right. So, not on my farm, please.
Yeah, but I'm not ready to boo-hoo those USDA yields. And I think everyone knows I've taken the USDA challenge more than a few times. Of course, USDA usually wins those challenges, but I'm not scared to take them on. But they're excellent people, good people that serve it. But I remain bearish this market. A lot of people now start to talk, well, here's a recession. Prices don't move lower. I don't see a recession in the near future. Who knows? We can have one. But income levels for farmers, retail sales, wages, loan rates are quite low. The consumer is still the big engine out there, and he's just chunking right along. He's doing fine. Maybe 2 to 3 to 4 years from now, but I think people started talking last year about a recession because on average the U.S. has a recession about every 10 years, so it's time. But it may be 20 years before we have a recession. And vis-a-vis that regard, China managed the economy a tremendous difference here in the U.S. China, in a sense, never has had a recession. Hadn't had one in 20 years. So that's not to say we need an economy like theirs at all. It's just the way things are managed. We're freer here. But so I think to say a recession is looming is just trying to talk about something we really don't know about, and we're betting on the odds, betting on the come.
Sure. Absolutely. Well, as we've talked briefly this morning, today we got the word that China is planning to, add more tariffs in retaliation to some of the tariffs that our president has threatened to add. And, looking at some that may start September 1st and others that will join the list in December. And then notice that cotton was on that list for December. Are we just in a long-term game at this point?
I think we're very much in a long-term game. I don't think a Chinese tariff now vis-a-vis cotton has actually any meaning whatsoever. I think those that think that fail to realize that the cotton market and trading and the flow patterns that we saw up until 2 years ago have completely changed, and we will not. I'll underline that. We will not go back to that situation. It's history. It's toast. It's done. China itself is going to reduce its demand for cotton. The Chinese textile industries are moving their industries out of China themselves into the other countries in Southeast Asia. So, the demand in China has just completely changed. Again, as I mentioned, China doesn't need our cotton. They can put that tariff on. China made a political decision, rightly or wrongly, and their decision to respond to the tariff to fight the U.S. government was to go directly to the farm level and to see if they could destroy the U.S. farm economy. And that's their play, that's their ploy to try to get the tariff against them offset. So that's why agriculture got involved. The trade war never was about agriculture, but China has used that our industry as in an effort to stop one move. So that's just what we're seeing, and as we well know, the U.S. government pumped a lot of money into trying to offset that, and everything we see says they'll continue to do that.
Okay. We're going to have to cut it off, I think, for this segment. We're not going to wait 4 months to do this again.
Well, we'll get the prices up then if you want.
Okay, yeah, why don't you work on that for us?
All right.
As always, it's a pleasure visiting with you, and we always, as usual, thank you for your input and insights. And with that, we'll be right back with the rest of this episode.
So, all right. Well, we want to give a big thank you to Dr. O.A. for always being a friend to us, more importantly, a friend to the U.S. cotton farmer, and for always being so on top of his game. We appreciate him. So, okay, that's going to just about do it for this installment of the Cotton Companion podcast. We want to thank Phytogen for sponsoring us, and we want to thank you, dear listener, sincerely for joining us. If you like what you're hearing, tell your farmer buddies about us, and they can get to our podcast in 3 easy ways. The first is going to cottongrower.com/companion, and you will find there a landing page with all 54 of our episodes archived. The second, They can subscribe to our channel on iTunes or Podbeam or wherever it is that you find your podcast these days. We are there. Simply search for The Cotton Companion. And the third way, the best way to find each episode, is to sign up for our weekly e-newsletter, the Cotton Grower e-news, which Jim creates. It's got all of the news that's fit in your e-news inbox. You can do that by simply going to www.cottongrower.com/subscribe. Also, make sure you're following us on social media. We are at Cotton Grower Mag on Twitter, and on Facebook you can find us by searching for Cotton Grower Magazine. We hope that you're enjoying our latest issue, which should be the August-September here if you wait a week before listening to this. The August-September will be hitting your mailbox at some point in that into that first week of September, beginning of the second week. This podcast is produced by Mr. Tyler Hatch, who works at the mothership Meister Media Worldwide in beautiful Willoughby, Ohio. My name is Beck Barnes, and I will be back with you here in 2 weeks for the next episode of The Cotton Companion. For now, on behalf of my own Cotton Companion, Jim Steadman, we wish you, your farm, and your family all the best.
Yeah, he works and he works and he works and he works and he works all day. God made it fun.
Phytogen thanks you for listening to this edition of The Cotton Companion. To learn how you can thrive with Phytogen, go to phytogen.com.